very chunky, huge pieces. Apparently the engine casing, that's what's actually physically come off the plane, and you can see in that live shot there coming to us from Changi Airport in Singapore just how substantial that was.
Yes, indeed, Ashley, and the CEO, Alan Joyce, there mentioning that all pieces of debris will have to be collected as part of the investigation into what caused this engine explosion. For those passengers who have been disembarked in Singapore, he said that they will be overnighted in hotels in Singapore. The affected jet will stay on the ground there. A replacement aircraft will fly in tonight, and that will be readied for takeoff for all of those passengers for tomorrow morning. And also he mentioned that there were 3 extremely experienced pilots on board that aircraft who handled the emergency according to procedures. On the line we have Richard Woodward, who's from the Pilots Association. Richard, thanks so much for joining us. What's your take on this incident we've seen with this flight QF32 today?
Well, obviously it's a fairly dramatic incident, simply because of the state of the engine, but the crew, as you said, the crew are trained to deal with such an emergency, and the probability of having a thing like that is normally once in the life of the aircraft, 20 to 25 years. Engines are incredibly reliable, but this is very unusual for a brand new aeroplane, a brand new engine. So I'm sure that Rolls-Royce and the manufacturer will be looking very closely at why the aircraft did it.
That's difficult public relations-wise for Qantas, isn't it, Richard? When, as you say, it's a brand new aircraft, it's their new flagship aircraft, the first one that they actually received from the manufacturer. If there's a problem with this aircraft, it may lead to doubts with the others. And indeed, we've seen that Qantas has suspended all A380 flights for now. Do you think that is wise?
Well, I'm an A380 pilot, so it's a conservative approach, and I don't blame Alan Joyce for doing that. If there's any doubt at all, they're on the side of safety. The engine is effectively in the early years of its life. It's tested extensively before it goes into commercial service, but in commercial sense, it's in the early years of its life. So for it to fail in such a catastrophic manner, yes, there is a problem and it needs to be found out.
Does that mean you're grounded for now, Richard?
Yes, it does, yeah.
So it is going to be quite an inconvenience, isn't it, for Qantas and for passengers, no doubt?
Oh, well, it'll be a massive scheduling headache for Qantas because of, the aeroplane carries a large number of passengers and goes to both the United States and the UK, so there'll be a bit of a headache in shifting 747s probably on to replace that aeroplane.
Can we imagine... Yes, indeed. Can we imagine what the pilots, what the passengers on board may have experienced when this engine did blow up, as it appears to have done?
Well, it will be a loud bang through the airframe, there's no doubt about that, and often there's a bit of shuddering and vibration, and often there's a bit of a smell through the air conditioning in the aircraft, simply because the compressed air that drives the air conditioning comes from the engine, at the front of the engine, nowhere near the back where it blew up, but that can cause a bit of a smell through the aircraft. So it would have been fairly dramatic for the first few seconds, especially for the passengers alongside the engine who could see it. The pilots are well in front of the engines, and we can't actually see them from the flight deck. So the pilots would have heard the bang, and they would have had an indication simultaneously. And we have a procedure to deal with. It's called severe damage for obvious reasons, and we have a procedure to deal with that, where we shut the engine down and secure the fuel and the hydraulics and the electrics, and then almost automatically we fire a fire bottle into the engine just in case there is a fire developing. And when we get indications that the fire's not developing, and the engine shut down, we then proceed with dumping fuel and whatever's necessary to bring the aircraft back to the standing.
Richard, apart from the engine, which we understand that these Airbuses can fly quite well even on 2 engines, so that wasn't a huge issue, but there was some damage to the wing also. Could that have been a concern for the pilots?
Well, yes, because we can't see it, we're reliant on the crew's observations of what they see, and if we've got time, one of the pilots will often go back and have a look. But if the back of the engine exploded like it did, that's the trailing edge of the wing, and that's the flaps which we use to slow the aircraft down for landing. I've made a composite material so the engine can damage that. It's not really a structural issue. The aircraft's not at risk in some ways, but it does actually cause a bit of complication with lowering the flaps down. But the aircraft is so designed that there's multiple ways of putting the flaps down and putting down individual bits of it. So it wouldn't have been a real problem once it's been assessed.
What would the pilot have said to the passengers, Richard? Is it a situation where you give minimal information, just reassurance?
Yeah, basically, you're very busy on the flight deck, as I've probably just indicated. You're quite busy trying to secure the engine and carry out the emergency drills, and then we're coming in traffic control, what we're doing as best we can, and then we're trying to contact our cabin crew to tell them what we're planning to do, because naturally getting an aircraft to turn around and land like that is quite a busy period for all of us. So when the captain gets a chance, he'll often get onto the PA and just explain that there's been a failure, because there's no point gilding the lily, as we say, because the passengers on the site can see the engine, and we just reassure them that the aircraft can fly quite comfortably on 3 engines, and we've now secured it, and we're going to get back to landing, and we'll be back in 20 or 30 minutes' time. Just keep it to the facts and keep it simple, and just reassure the passengers that the aircraft's safe. I mean, we train our entire lives to deal with these sort of emergencies.
Richard Wood, Ashley Gillen here. We've seen these quite startling pictures of pieces of metal painted with the Qantas kangaroo on the ground in Indonesia. Did it surprise you just how chunky these pieces of debris are?
No, actually,